Town Bank Mortgage, NMLS number 512138, is an equal housing lender. This podcast is for informational purposes only. And now, the man born with a 5 o'clock shadow and with the NMLS number 2028201. He is a gentleman. He is a scholar. He is
Tyler Cralle.
Well, it's my favorite edition of the show. It is Friday. You know what that means. Yippee! Live from Southern Command in sunny South Florida via New York City. It is Open Line Friday. People will know what I'm talking about. People that know will know. We don't do Open Line Friday here on the Wilmington Mortgage Podcast, but it is still the Friday edition of Wilmington Mortgage, and I am the aforementioned host of this podcast, Tyler Cralle, of course, loan officer, Town Bank Mortgage, right here in Wilmington, North Carolina, where we break down the top stories impacting mortgage rates every single weekday, unless, of course, I'm sick, on vacation, or it is Azalea Festival, and it is neither of those. So away we go. And, man, there was really nothing going on today. On Thursday, we got a jobless claims report, which is a little interesting. No doubt about that. First kind of negative labor market report that we got this week. So we had, job openings. We've got private payrolls. Today's non-farm payroll. But this is the first report that showed any signs of cracking in the labor market, or at least a kind of decline. But it was countered by more evidence in the report. So we're going to get to that in a second. We got a lot going on globally, kind of a continuation of the conversation yesterday. Russia, Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky sending an open letter to Vladimir Putin talking about trying to end this 4-year-long conflict. And then we have Hezbollah rejecting the peace deal brokered by the White House. So a lot of global news that could have an impact on oil markets, which will then filter its way into the bond markets. And then we got to talk about Elon Musk. This is like the craziest story. Elon Musk becoming a trillionaire. Elon Musk will not need a mortgage. If he wants to get one, he can give me a call. But it is crazy when you look at, he's going to be the first trillionaire. I remember when people made a big deal about Bill Gates. I think Bill Gates and Warren Buffett at one point were like the only billionaires at one point, I think. I guess the Waltons were. I just remember a billionaire being like a big deal. And then all of a sudden we got to 100 billion. And then now we're talking about a trillionaire. It's just, it is nuts. All right, let's start with jobless claims. So this is our third labor market report of the week. Job openings, best report, and I think it was 17 months. No, that was 11 months. Then, of course, job openings are a sign that, companies are trying to hire and they can't find people. So you're seeing, a tightening, or I should say a loosening of the labor market to some extent, which is usually a good thing for workers. Tightening, right? No, loosening. I can't remember which one it is. I can't remember which one's the good one, where basically loosening, because you're seeing more trying to find people. And so it's tighter for workers, or for employers. It's more loose for employees, which means there's more options out there, which can then give them some negotiating power. So job openings is a sign that the labor market is somewhat strong. Then we got private payrolls, best report in 17 months. More sign that we're seeing some strength in the labor market. And then we get jobless claims. And like I said, this was the first kind of negative report. Jobless claims rose to a 4-month high, almost 4-month high, rising to 225,000, a 13,000 jump, which was more than economists were expecting, and the highest level since early February. Now, the 4-week moving average, as you would expect, also climbed 214,750. 6,500 increase. That's the highest level since the end of February. So the 4-week average, not as bad. And then continuing claims, this is long-term employment or unemployment, actually fell. Remember when we were seeing a a situation where long-term unemployment was starting to get worrying. We were hitting like multi-year highs. And now it's like the reverse, where we're seeing a slight climb in jobless claims and an actual drop in continuing claims. In fact, fell to 8,000, a decrease of 8,000 to 1.77 million. Still the third lowest level in the last 2 years. And let's not forget that jobless claims earlier this year fell to the lowest level in, 67 years? Something like that. So, kind of problematic, but not really that bad. So, claims are rising week to week, see some fluctuations. The 4-week moving average is probably more important to watch. We'll see if that's showing sort of a longer-term problem. But the fact that long-term unemployment is actually declining, third best week in the last 2 years, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. So we'll see. We'll see what non-farm says today. That will, all eyes are already we're going to be on it, but now even more so that we got 2 solid reports and kind of a mixed report. So labor market, obviously, impact. One of the Fed's dual mandates is labor market, and so can have an impact on rates. But this report, like I said, was mixed. 2 solid reports earlier this week. All eyes on non-farm payroll. All right, let's talk about Russia. Let's talk Ukraine. Obviously, these things are way above my pay grade, but they're important because what's happening, I mean, I remember the last time we saw a gas spike was the start of the Russia-Ukraine war. And then the second time was the start of the Iran war in the last couple of years. So if we were to see an end to these conflicts, could that be a better thing? However, it did seem like after a while we saw supply chains got moved around a little bit. People weren't as relying on Russian oil. And now we're hearing about possibly, certain countries maybe getting passes, being allowed to get Russian oil because of the block of the Strait of Hormuz being caused by the Iran conflict. But it did seem kind of funny how it was this huge thing. Oil spiked like $120, $130 a barrel. And then we just sort of slowly fell back down. And it just, like I said the other day, I forgot that Russia and Ukraine were still at war, which I felt kind of bad about because millions of people have died. Tens of thousands of people, I think, are dying a month. And I forgot about it. So what was the latest update? Well, if you remember, we talked about this yesterday. Zelensky, Ukraine, sent drones in to attack I guess it was St. Petersburg. Attacked one of the buildings. I can't remember which building it was. But where they're holding an economic conference where, look at that. I got an update. Where they're holding an economic conference where Putin's going to be speaking at. Not at that time, but later in the week. But the fact that they were able to get that close was, I think, a wake-up call for some people. Kind of an embarrassment for Putin, no doubt about that. So now Zelensky has published an open letter to the Russian leader saying that Ukraine proposes ending this war through direct engagement between us and you. I am proposing a meeting, Zelensky said in the letter. I propose to set a clear date for such a meeting. Ukraine is ready for a full ceasefire for the duration of the negotiations. Zelensky published the letter a day after Ukrainian drones hit Putin's hometown of St. Petersburg. Speaking to a foreign journalist, including AFP in St. Petersburg, but just before Zelensky's appeal. So we haven't actually got Putin's response to the letter. Putin had repeated his frequent questioning of the Ukrainian leader's legitimacy. This is like my favorite thing. He said the question of whether Zelensky was Ukraine's legitimate leader needs analysis because after his 5-year term expired in 2024, martial law has prohibited an election during wartime. And I just love that Putin's like, oh, I don't know if we can trust this. like Putin's winning elections in Russia. I love that. I mean, dude, Putin must just be so surrounded by yes men, or he's just like having fun with it, which is pretty sick if you think about it. But like, you're questioning Zelensky's if he's a legit leader. Like I said, like Putin's winning democratic elections. Like, oh yeah, we could trust those Russian elections, but man, Ukraine, that is just not a bastion of democracy like Russia. That to me is pretty funny. I mean, how do you make that argument when you're Putin? Like, I just don't know if we can trust Zelensky. That's pretty funny to me. All right, so that came out, but then there was a piece in the Wall Street Journal by Yaroslav Trofimov, who said that the Russian elite are starting to sour on the war, but Putin doesn't seem to care. I mean, he is worried about if Zelensky is the legitimate leader of Ukraine. Russia's inability to break through the stalemate in Ukraine has become evident to significant voices in the Russian establishment. These calls are not just coming from business elites and more liberal parts of the Russian establishment. Some of Russia's best-known hawks have also become much more open in expressing a belief that Moscow simply does not have the capacity for an outright victory. One of those is Oleg Sarvov, a former Ukrainian lawmaker who fled to Russia in 2014 and is one of Putin's top candidates for heading a pro-Russian puppet regime that the Kremlin planned to install in occupied Kiev in early 2022. And they thought they were going to win the war in like 6 weeks. In a Telegram post last month, Sarvov, I think I'm saying that right, warned that Russian propaganda had fostered a dangerous illusion about inevitable victory against Ukraine. And it was distorting everyone. I mean, the fact that Putin thinks that argument even has weight, that like, I'm not dealing with Zelensky. He's not even the real president of Ukraine. I mean, that's so good. I mean, it's hysterical how it would be like Trump being like, I'm not going to work with that guy because that guy used to be on television. I don't take him seriously. Another hardliner, historian and former Kremlin official, Alexei Chadev, who runs the Drone Warfare Research Center, the Ushkunik Drone Warfare Research Center. My Russian's a little rough. Noted that pursuing the current course of war is not just a path to non-victory, but to a full-scale defeat. So you're seeing some bubbling in Russia that people are like, hey, Putin, what's going on, man? 4 years into this thing. What's up? And I even saw something the other day. It was like, oh, Russia's making ground. I'm like, oh, I wonder who in the Putin machine is leaking that. That's so good, though. The Putin, Zelensky's not a legitimate leader. He doesn't hold elections like I do. Like I do in Russia. I'm the true leader. Look how people love me. I win 99% of the vote. Me and Kim Jong-il hanging out. All right, other part of the world. We have directly impacting Iran, of course, the Iranian-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel, of course, earlier this week wanted to escalate things and destroy Hezbollah. President Trump was not happy about that. Tense phone call with Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. And, things got tense. A lot of stories written about that. Looks like that was, in fact, true. I think Trump even himself admitted it on the New York Post Pod Force One, where he said, like, yeah, we got into it. But, hey, I like Netanyahu. He's a good guy, and it's not going to mess the relationship up. Trump was not happy about that. Now, a lot of people have questioned why exactly Trump isn't allowing Israel to do that. Because, one, it's not us. It's Israel. True, it's an ally of ours, but we're not putting ourselves in harm's way. And Hezbollah is a Iranian-backed terrorist group that does give Iran power. And so destroying them, especially in Lebanon, would be in everyone's best interest. So it would weaken Iran. I mean, in fact, one of the reasons a lot of people forget, one of the reasons why a lot of people said, hey, Trump going after Iran, now was the time. And a lot of people have said that probably one of the most significant events of the 21st century, or blunders, I should say, was the October 7th Hamas attack of Israel. Where, they went to Israel, killed all those people, kidnapped people, held them hostage, murdered them, killed children, raped, horrible stuff. the response to that, I mean, Israel just sort of decimating that region and taking out all of their enemies, now sort of having carte blanche to be able to do so. A lot of terrorist groups. I mean, Iran's the largest state sponsor of terror in the world. I mean, this is not a question. This is a fact. And so, destroying Hamas in Gaza, allowing, weakening Hezbollah, weakening many of these organizations that, Syria, running Bashar al-Assad out of Syria. I mean, these are all Iranian allies, and a lot of them are supported by by Iran. And so weakening them has made Iran weak because that's where a lot of their power came from. And so allowing Israel to take out, Hezbollah would actually increase our negotiating power against Iran versus allowing them to sort of stay in that position. Just gives them another front. So, not sure why, but the U.S. is trying to broker a deal there. And Hezbollah flatly rejected the ceasefire, saying, no way, Jose. The agreement had little, if any, effect on the ground in Lebanon. Israel pounded southern Lebanon with strikes, and Hezbollah fired rockets at Israeli forces. And so they will continue. It doesn't look like they're going to escalate the way Netanyahu wanted, but they are continuing to fight, just like the U.S. and Iran are exchanging fire every once in a while. So that was rejected. And we will see if things escalate in southern Lebanon or not. All right. Let's get to some fun stuff before we end the week. We're going to go a little long just because this is crazy. So I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Elon Musk is on track. I mean, he's close to becoming the first trillionaire, first trillionaire with a T. I always love them. People always say that when they're being interviewed, when they're talking about finance. They're like, $1 trillion with a T. Yes, $1 trillion. They also used to do it with billion. There's corruption in the government. Yes, we couldn't locate 2.5 billion with a B. So yeah, Elon Musk is about to become a trillionaire. And these stats are just nuts. So as it stands right now, according to a Wall Street Journal analysis, $970 billion, mostly held in stock. Musk's wealth includes $538 billion pre-IPO of SpaceX, $167 billion for a stake in Tesla, another $150 billion or so for stock options in these companies that he could exercise just about any time. Then there's billions apiece for the Boring Company, which drills tunnels, Neuralink, brain implant firm he founded, $104 billion property, aircraft, and other investments, and assets as estimated by Altrata, a wealth intelligence firm. But here's what's crazy. So if you look at his career, over the last 31 years, Musk has made $3.6 million an hour. Just under $60,000 a minute. $85 million a day, $602 million a week, $2.6 billion a month, and $31.3 billion a year. That's crazy. $31 billion a year. An American household earning the median U.S. income of $83,730 would have to work more than 11 million years to make that amount of wealth. Which I know some people are gonna hate Musk for this, but remember, here's another thing I think is so important. This is the one thing that makes America just so amazing. Elon Musk is self-made. Now I know people, he had rich family in South Africa or something. I mean, okay, they might have been wealthy, but he didn't inherit $1 billion. He didn't take $1 billion and turn it into $1 trillion. He made this money himself. He's going to be a trillionaire. He made the money himself. It's so amazing. It truly, it's like we're coming up on the United States' 250th birthday. And yeah, I've heard people talk about how Putin might be a trillionaire and some of these other leaders of these corrupt countries might be, worth hundreds of billions of dollars. But Elon Musk is just a regular person who at 50, he's 54. And if you assume he's making what, 3.6 million an hour, and that's not just, and I don't think they're going off of him like working 80 hours a week or 70 hours a week or whatever. He's at 970 billion. So how much does he make a month again? He makes 30 billion a year. So that means that in a year he'll be a trillionaire. That's so crazy. I went and looked up and pulled up the GDP of like all the countries. And, America, baller, 32. You know what's crazy? We're at 32 trillion. China's at 21. I didn't realize we were that far ahead of China. I remember before the pandemic, we were like kind of neck and neck. They're way behind us. And then you drop under that, Germany's 5 trillion, 5.5 trillion. But Taiwan's 22. Their GDP is 976 billion, which is what Elon Musk's net worth is. So that means every country, how many countries are there? 218. What is that? What's this country? Tuvalu? They have a GDP of 65 million. That's nuts. Samoan Islands, 1.84 billion. Turks and Caicos, 1.75 billion. So Elon Musk is now, if he was a country, would be the 22nd wealthiest nation. Now, one thing I've always heard is that J.P. Morgan was like the richest man, and it's really crazy if you go back and look before the Federal Reserve, and us having like a set dollar and everything. We'd have economic crashes, the U.S. government would go bankrupt, basically. Like, we'd run out of money. And they would have to go to, like, J.P. Morgan bailed out the U.S. government twice. Like, they had to go to him and were like, hey, we need money to finance operations. And he had to loan them money and then loan it back. And that's why they decided to create the Federal Reserve. It's like, this is crazy. The United States government is, like, reliant on a guy. And J.P. Morgan's like, I'm not going to give you the money, then you're not going to get it. And so I looked up this, because I was always told he was, like, the wealthiest, or J.D. Rockefeller is supposedly the wealthiest man that's ever existed, because I think at one point was like 1% of GDP or whatever. So according 1.5% of U.S. GDP back then, it would be the equivalent of 487 billion. So Elon Musk is like 3% of GDP. He's the richest man ever now. That's nuts. That is nuts. All right, we went way long for this Friday show. End on that. I know a lot of people are going to hate that. They're going to be like, oh, my God. Can't pay my mortgage. This guy's worth $1 trillion. I get it, but it's also kind of cool. Trillionaire. All right, you guys have a good Friday. Hopefully, good numbers, non-farm payroll later today. You guys enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back here. Oh, actually, we've got a great Cape Fear report this week. Luke Waddell, former city council man. I was almost going to say member, but council's like gender specific, Something like commissioner, which is like neutral. You have a councilman, councilwoman. So he's former city councilman. Also, of course, founder of Cadence Realty right here in Wilmington, North Carolina, or Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. So I talked to him. We had a great conversation, talked about property tax, bunch of other stuff. Housing market, everything here, how he got started. So it was good conversation, 40 minutes. So that'll be out on Monday. This show will be back Tuesday. So you guys enjoy it all. I'll talk to you on Tuesday. And remember, as always, do not wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait.